Good morning. Welcome to First Edition, the online ministry of First Community Church. My name is Glenn Miles, and I'm the senior minister here in this amazing congregation, and we are thrilled that you've joined us on this day for worship. We want you to know, no matter who you are, where you're from, what you believe, or even what you don't believe, you are welcomed and accepted in this congregation. Right now, there's a QR code up on your screen. Would you please use the camera option on your phone to capture that code? When the link pops up, click on it. You can register your attendance, you can submit a prayer concern, you can even find a way to support us financially there as well. We'd love to hear from you. Today, the sermon is by our Minister of Spiritual Life and Learning, the Reverend Seth Stearns. It's titled, What Do We Do Now? Easter's in the past. The hallelujahs have faded. This is a question not only for the disciples in Jesus' day, but a question for us as well. What do we do now? When does the work of our faith begin? Well, Seth will let us know that it's through the power of unconditional love for each other and for our neighbor that we find our to-do list. It's a wonderful sermon. Let's go together to worship now.
I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready. Lord, ready to put on my long white robe.
My long white robe, just ready to This is the 6th Sunday in Easter. 50 days of the Easter season have passed. We've journeyed with Jesus through his ministry, his murder, his resurrection, and some of his appearances. So what do we do now as we wait on God's next move? As I read the text, initially my mind zeroed in on some of the familiar themes. Another appearance story, another miracle story, Peter being goofy. He just is. Then Peter being commissioned to lead the church, apparently. But I kept reading the text, and I found that the text was rich in possible answers to this question: what do we do now as we wait on God's next move? I found myself really intrigued by Peter. I found myself feeling a lot of empathy for Peter. I wonder what it was like to be him during this time of grief, loss, despair, and silence as he waited for God's next move. I imagine Peter telling his story. I gave up everything to follow this rabbi. He invited me to follow him, and I did, without really being sure why I said yes. There was something about him, and he asked me to follow him. I became his disciple. I walked with him. I sat and listened to his teachings. I watched him do amazing miracles, and I watched and saw people, all sorts of people, all types of people, be transformed by the love of this man, Jesus. I was transformed. I came to realize that we were part of something truly amazing, and there was no telling how high and far this movement might go. When we arrived in Jerusalem, I will never forget it. The crowd was ecstatic, enthusiastic, joyful. I saw the healing, liberation, and power of God's grace through Jesus in the lives that he touched by kindness and love. This wave that we were on seemed to know no end. What else might be possible, we wondered. I experienced joy, purpose, a sense of community, love, encouragement. I felt, maybe for the first time in my life, safe. And then in what seemed like an instant, he was gone, humiliated and murdered on a cross. I betrayed him not once, but 3 times. How could this have happened? What do we do now? Peter's story is like our story. Just when we feel like we understand how God behaves, how God works, large shifts take place in our lives, and all of that certainty fades away. And we are left asking, what do I do now? So Peter waits. His heart is broken and nothing makes sense anymore. He decides to do something that's familiar to him, something that has a sense of certainty about it, something he knows something about. He decides to go fishing. Maybe he's playing with the idea of going back to the life that he knew, the life before this great adventure. Perhaps you have considered going back when you find yourself in between the certainty and the shifting between the familiar and the unknown. Certainly going back is an option, but I have come to believe that the spiritual journey is always a forward-facing path paved with trust. So he goes fishing, and others decide to join him. They're out all night long, and they've caught nothing. There are several professional fishermen on this boat, and they've been out all night long, and they've caught nothing. I feel Peter's devastation over the death of Jesus and the loss of a way of life that he may have known for a few years. He wants to do something that will give him a sense of control, familiarity, certainty. But they catch no fish throughout the night. But dawn breaks. They spot a stranger on the shore. The stranger calls out, "Children, you have caught no fish through the night, have you?" They respond, "No." The stranger instructs them to throw their nets off the side of the boat. They did so, and their nets were full. Now, I want to stop here for a moment. I think there are two miracles taking place here at the same time. There is, of course, the one that we're familiar with, where this stranger, who it will later find out is Jesus, instructs them to throw the nets off the right side of the boat, and they haul in lots of fish. 153 to be specific, but who's counting? But there's another miracle here. Again, putting myself in Peter's sandals for a moment. Why would I listen to a stranger who's telling me to do something ridiculous? I'm tired, I'm brokenhearted, I'm frustrated, and oh, by the way, I'm a professional fisherman. And you, stranger, are suggesting that we throw our nets on the right side of the boat, which, by the way, we have been doing all night long. And here is the second miracle. Peter does it. He does it. He heeds the advice of this stranger. I'm not at all certain that I would. Actually, I'm going to change that. I know for a fact that I would not. I would very politely pretend to appreciate the suggestion and ignore it simultaneously. Why would Peter do that? What was it about the stranger's instruction that was so compelling? What was it about Peter that he obeyed? How many of you have a reticular activating system? Actually, you all do. You all have a reticular activating system. It's a network of nerve pathways in the brainstem and the upper brain that serve a number of functions, but one of the key ones is it helps us regulate our attention. So let me explain how you have experienced this, I suspect. If you are considering buying a car and you're doing research on the car and you're looking at these cars, all of a sudden you see these cars everywhere on the road. You know what I'm talking about? You've had that experience? That's your reticular activating system. It shifts our attention. Matthew Kelly, in his book Holy Moments, tells a story of a monastery that's deep in the woods. This monastery is full of monks who are full of joy. Many people knew of this monastery and would travel far and wide to come to the monastery and simply pick up and be exposed to this joy. It was contagious. People would not only come to experience the joy, but they would come with their questions. Questions like, what should I do with my life? Am I wasting my life? How can I find more meaning in my life? And then a change began to occur. It was slow, gradual, almost imperceptible at first. The monks began to get irritable. Jealousy began to take hold. Gossiping and arguing became normal behavior. This change became visible to the visitors. They could feel that this was not the same joyful place that they had known for years. They saw the monks becoming impatient with one another and impatient with the visitors. It wasn't long until the visitors stopped coming. The abbot was at a loss as to what could be done about the monastery. Finally, in the midst of his frustration and sadness as to what had become of this once joyful place, he announced he was leaving for 3 days to confer with a hermit who lived in the mountains. "Who will be in charge while you're away?" the monks asked. And he responded, "I'll leave that to you." And at that point, a huge argument erupted among the monks. The abbot journeyed to the home of the hermit, and while sipping tea, the abbot explained his heartbreak over what had become of the monastery and asked the hermit what to do. The hermit smiled and said, "Say to them that the Messiah is among them." The abbot failed to see the point and, quite honestly, was disappointed in the counsel. Yet, as he traveled back, the power of that counsel began to really dig into his soul. He returned to the monastery, and the monks noted that he was radiant, even younger looking. And he shared the message with the monks: the Messiah is among you. From that moment, the monks began to treat one another differently. They looked at one another differently. They thought of one another differently. They began to treat one another with profound kindness and respect. And soon the monastery was again a joyful place. The visitors returned, and the monks and the monastery were flourishing. A woman came to visit the monastery and was overwhelmed by the transformation. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. And she asked the abbot what had happened there. And the abbot told her, "We started living as though the Messiah lived among us." Then the woman began to weep. She shared with the abbot how her soul was struggling with so many things, that she was tired and in despair. She asked the abbot what it is that she should do. His response was, "Treat every person you meet as though they were Jesus in disguise." Perhaps Peter, because of his time with Jesus, saw the world differently. His reticular activating system had been reset to be open to miracles. He had seen many miracles over the past few years, and perhaps he was in desperate need of a miracle. And maybe it was the kind words uttered by the stranger, "Children, you have no fish, do you?" I'm not sure why he did as the stranger suggested. Perhaps while we wait for God's next move, the best thing we can do is move. Now, let's talk about this stranger on the shore. Can I confess something to you? And I'd appreciate if we just keep it between us, if that's all right. The stories of Jesus appearing after his resurrection and not being recognized by those who knew him well have always confused me. I've heard lots of takes on why Jesus doesn't look like Jesus following the resurrection, and none of these accounts are terribly helpful for me. So if you were to ask me, why is it that Scripture reports that Jesus is not immediately recognized following his resurrection by those who knew him very well, I don't have an answer for you. I don't know. Here's what I do know. My life has been changed, made better, blessed by acts of kindness, words of encouragement, and wise counsel from strangers. Biblical scholar and author Pete Enns suggests in his book Curveball that we experience the grace of God through the kindness of others. That the Spirit of Christ is often revealed to us through one another, through strangers. There was a period in my life where I felt particularly lost. Maybe you've had those periods as well. I'd recently lost my father. I had graduated from college. The country was in the middle of a deep recession, and I was unable to find a job in my hometown of Akron, Ohio. A friend of mine was a carpenter, and he too was struggling to find work in Akron. So we packed it all up, and we went down to Charleston, South Carolina. We joined a construction crew, and we built custom homes on Kiowa Island. I learned a lot through that experience. The primary thing I learned was this was not my path. So I decided to look for non-construction jobs in Charleston. I thought I might try my hand at bartending. So I got an interview at a particular bar, and I was interviewed by the manager, and I could tell it did not go well. She was very kind. We shook hands, and she indicated that I was welcome to sit at the bar and enjoy a beer. I didn't want to offend her, so I thought I should do that. But as I sat there, the full weight of my sense of being lost really settled in on me. A friendly African-American man approached me. Apparently, my despair was quite evident. He introduced himself, and I think his name was Jimmy. I think that's correct. He asked me why I appeared to be so down, and explained my situation and how I was trying to find my way and find my path. I asked him what he did for a living, and he declared, and I mean declared, I am a Navy rigger. I was born to be a Navy rigger. I love being a Navy rigger. My first question was, what is a Navy rigger? And it turns out that he worked on drive shafts and propellers at the Navy shipyard in Charleston. My second question was, how did you know that you were on your path? And he said this. He said, you need to get quiet. You need to get quiet. God will let you know. That conversation altered my life. That man had no idea the impact that that conversation had on me. 2 weeks later, my car was packed up. I was heading back to Akron with plans to go to seminary. And my life has not been the same since. A stranger. A stranger. Friends, I don't know why Jesus' friends don't recognize him following the resurrection, but I know this for certain, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the Spirit of Christ speaks to us, interacts with us through others, and even strangers. So this brings us to the last portion of the text, the crescendo, I think. Peter knows that the stranger on shore is Jesus. He now knows that. And after they finished breakfast, Jesus asked him 3 times, do you love me? Peter responds, well, of course I love you. Jesus instructs Peter, feed and attend to my sheep. Now, many believe that this marks when Jesus hands over the reins to Peter as the leader of the movement in the church. I'm not sure that's what's happening here. I may have a different take on it. This is how I imagine the conversation. Peter, do you love me? Yes, you know that I love you. No, Peter, you are not hearing me. Do you love me? Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Peter, you are not hearing the question. Do you love me? Yes, Lord, and to be honest, now I'm getting a little offended that you're asking me a third time. Peter, if you love me, then feed and take care of my sheep. No, I don't think this is the reins being handed over to Peter. Yes, it is Peter's commission, and it is our commission. John repeats this theme throughout his story. To love Christ is to love and care for one another. To love God is to love and care for one another. Jesus wants Peter to hear this loud and clear. Jesus wants us to hear this loud and clear. If you love me, if you really love me, you will love and care for one another. This is not complicated. It's hard, but it's not complicated. This is the beginning of the church. This is the mission of the church. This is the calling of the church. Love and care for one another. This is the sixth Sunday of Easter. 50 days of Easter season have passed. We have journeyed with Jesus through his ministry, his murder, his resurrection, and his appearances. So what do we now do while we wait on God's next move? And I think there are three things that we can take away from this text to answer that question. Number one, trust that the resurrected, living, active Spirit of Christ is real and present and is up to something. Not in a metaphorical way, in a real way. Number two, trust that the Spirit of the living and active Christ is revealed through one another. Keep our eyes open for that stranger on the shore. It could be a friend, a family member, someone you randomly run into. It could be you for another. Act as though everyone you meet is Jesus in disguise. Number three, be caring and kind. Live into the prayer that God has for the church. Be present, be active, be loving and kind to one another. Friends, this is what we do now as we wait for God's next move. May it be so. Amen.
Thank you for joining us today for worship. I know that you were inspired by the sermon and by the beauty of the music. Right now, we've put that QR code back up for you. We'd love to hear from you. Again, this is your chance to register your attendance, to share a prayer concern, and especially to support us financially. As you can imagine, it takes a lot in order to produce all of these different options that we have for folks to view online and worship services and to care for our neighbors and feed the hungry and all the rest. Please take a moment, won't you, to consider making a gift to First Community. It's your way to support us and to join together with us in this ministry.